What would you do if you had 18 months to live and two sons slowly destroying themselves with every sunrise? Would you spend your final months fighting them? Begging them? Threatening to cut them off? Edward Lancaster, one of Britain's most powerful billionaires, tried all three. None of it worked. Then he made a decision so radical, so unexpected, so completely outside the boundaries of his world that his lawyers questioned his sanity, his family questioned his judgment, and his sons questioned everything they thought they knew about wealth, power, and what a family actually owes each other. The solution did not come from a therapist. It did not come from a rehabilitation facility or a family intervention or another emergency board meeting with concerned executives. It came from the most unexpected person in the Lancaster mansion. A 45-year-old woman from Batangas, Philippines, who arrived 3 years earlier with 2 suitcases, a worn Bible, and her grandmother's quiet wisdom stitched into everything she did. Her name was Rosa Dela Cruz. She was the housekeeper. And what Edward Lancaster asked her to do would change 5 lives in ways that nobody, including Rosa herself, could possibly have predicted. Subscribe now. This story is just starting, and what happens next will shock you. Hit like, drop Pinoy red heart in the comments, and stay until the end. You really do not want to miss what comes next. Lancaster Industries occupied 17 floors of a glass tower in the heart of the City of London. Edward Lancaster had built it from a single software patent at age 26 into a £3 billion empire spanning financial technology, property development, and cloud infrastructure across 4 continents. At 58, he was the kind of man who walked into rooms and made them quieter simply by entering. Decisive. Precise. Respected by competitors and feared by those who misunderstood respect for warmth. His wife Margaret had been the warmth. When she died 5 years ago from a sudden cardiac event, the warmth left with her and never quite returned. Margaret Lancaster had been the invisible architecture of their family. The one who noticed when James was struggling before James could articulate it. The one who sat with William during his nightmares when he was 7 and never told anyone because William had asked her not to. When she died, the boys were 21 and 19. Old enough to understand the loss. Young enough to have absolutely no framework for processing it. Edward threw himself into work because work had answers. James threw himself into nightclubs because nightclubs had noise. William threw himself into gambling because gambling had the same addictive uncertainty as grief. You never knew what was coming next. By the time Rosa Dela Cruz arrived at Lancaster Mansion 3 years after Margaret's death, the household had rotted quietly from the inside. 3 housekeepers had left in 18 months, 1 citing the boys' behavior, 2 simply disappearing without explanation. The agency that sent Rosa warned her directly. Difficult family. High turnover. Significant dysfunction. Rosa listened to all of it, thanked the agency coordinator, and reported for her first day of work at 6:45 in the morning, 15 minutes early, wearing a pressed uniform and carrying a small container of homemade bibinka she had made the previous evening. She offered it to no one. She simply placed it on the kitchen counter and began working. Within 6 weeks, Rosa had done what 3 previous housekeepers could not. Not through confrontation or complaint or the careful documentation of grievances. Through presence. She was simply always there. Steady, unhurried, unshakable. The kitchen was immaculate by 7. Fresh flowers appeared on the dining table every Monday from the market 2 streets away. The smell of proper cooking filled the mansion for the first time in years. James noticed it first, coming downstairs late one morning to find his favorite childhood breakfast waiting on the counter with no note attached. He ate it standing up alone, and did not tell anyone that he had cried quietly into his coffee afterward. Edward noticed Rosa the way quiet men notice things, slowly, then all at once. He observed how she handled William's occasional rages without flinching or retreating. How she repaired a broken shelf in the library herself, rather than waiting for the maintenance contractor. How she left a glass of warm water and 2 paracetamol outside James's bedroom door on the mornings she could tell he had come home at 4 in the morning. She never commented. Never judged. Never reported. She simply responded to need with care the way people do when care is not a performance but a practice. Edward began to understand that Rosa Dela Cruz was the most competent person in his household. The diagnosis arrived on a Tuesday in November. Edward's private physician delivered it in the calm clinical language that doctors use when they want to give devastating information the dignity of precision. A rare progressive neurological condition. Measurable deterioration already present in the scans. 18 months was the optimistic projection. 12 was more realistic. There were treatment protocols that might slow the progression. Nothing existed yet that could reverse it. Edward thanked his doctor, drove himself home, sat in Margaret's chair in the study for 3 hours without moving, and then opened his laptop and began reviewing his son's financial positions. What he found confirmed his worst fear. Leaving them his fortune would destroy them completely. James had accumulated personal debts of £400,000 that Edward had not known about, lifestyle debt, not investment debt. The kind that accumulates invisibly when someone has no concept of consequence because consequence has always been removed before it could land. William's situation was worse. 3 separate gambling accounts. 2 private loans from individuals whose names Edward did not recognize. A pattern of behavior that had the specific shape of addiction rather than recklessness. Edward sat with these numbers for a week. He spoke to Mr. Chun, his most trusted lawyer of 20 years. He outlined an idea so unconventional that Mr. Chun asked him twice whether he was certain he was feeling well. Edward called Rosa into his study on a Thursday evening after the boys had left for the night. He told her everything. The diagnosis. The timeline. The financial situation with both sons. Rosa sat across from him at the desk and listened the way she always listened, completely without interruption, with the specific quality of attention that made people feel genuinely heard rather than merely processed. When Edward finished, he said, "I want to will Lancaster Industries and all associated properties to you. Not permanently. Strategically. I need someone with integrity to hold this family together while I still can." Rosa's response was immediate. Quiet but absolute. "No, sir. That is not my place." Edward asked her to think about it. Rosa prayed about it instead. She called her mother in Batangas that night, a phone call she had not planned to make, that lasted 2 hours, that ended with her mother saying something in Tagalog that Rosa wrote in her notebook and read 3 times before sleeping. She returned to Edward's study 2 mornings later with her answer and her 3 conditions. The boys would never go without food, shelter, or basic dignity. Everything would be returned to them when they were genuinely ready, and she alone would determine readiness. She answered to God first, Edward second, and no other authority under any circumstances. Edward accepted every condition without negotiation. Mr. Chun completed the legal documentation over 4 weeks. Carefully, quietly, with the specific discretion of a lawyer who understood that some strategies require absolute secrecy to function. Lancaster Industries, the London townhouse, the property portfolio across Europe, the investment accounts, all of it transferred legally to Rosa Dela Cruz. She signed each document with her full name, Rosa Maria Dela Cruz, in the same steady handwriting she used to write her weekly shopping lists. When Mr. Chun handed her the final page, she looked at it for a long moment and said, "Mr. Chun, this was never mine to keep. Please make sure the documents reflect that intention somewhere." Mr. Chun looked at his career and thought, "I have never met anyone like this." Edward announced it at dinner on a Friday. He had chosen Friday deliberately, the end of a week, a natural boundary. He waited until both boys were seated and had begun eating before he spoke. He kept it brief. Rosa and he had developed a deep mutual respect and care over the past 3 years. He had asked her to marry him. She had agreed. They were legally married that morning at the registry office. James put his fork down very carefully and precisely, the way people do when they are managing an impulse they cannot yet name. William stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. The sound of it hitting the marble floor was the loudest thing in the room. What followed was not a single confrontation but a sustained siege. James demanded a meeting with Mr. Chun, who confirmed the marriage was entirely legal. William called his father's oldest friend and business partner, who said carefully that Edward appeared to be of completely sound mind. Family friends called the house in waves of barely concealed outrage. 3 tabloid journalists appeared at the end of the driveway within 48 hours. Someone had already talked. Stories began appearing online about a Filipino housekeeper and a grieving billionaire. Rosa read every article. She said nothing to anyone publicly. She continued running the household. On the first morning of the following month, both boys found their allowance accounts empty. William's credit card declined at 2 in the morning outside a Mayfair members club.
He called his father.
Edward handed the phone to Rosa. Rosa said, "Breakfast is at 7.
Come home."
William said several things that are not worth repeating. Rosa listened to all of them and then said, 7 o'clock. I am making sinangag.
William hung up.
He arrived at 6:48. James held out longer, 11 days of making his own toast, refusing to sit at the table, conducting himself with the specific performance of a man who wants everyone to know he is not capitulating. On the 12th day, the smell of Rosa's adobo reached the second floor of the Lancaster mansion. James came downstairs without being called.
He sat down.
He said nothing. Rosa refilled his bowl before he finished the first serving. Rosa did not lecture them. She did not construct a rehabilitation program or a structured intervention plan or a schedule of therapeutic activities. She ran the house the way her mother had run their home in Batangas, with the understanding that a well-ordered house with regular meals and shared routines is itself a form of healing. Breakfast together every morning.
No phones at the table.
Proper food at proper times. She gave them responsibilities framed not as obligations but as trust. James was given oversight of the household accounts, not to punish him but because Rosa told him honestly that she needed help and believed he was capable. James discovered, for the first time in his adult life, that being needed felt different from being funded. William's assignment was the Lancaster property maintenance operation, coordinating contractors, resolving tenant disputes, managing schedules across their European buildings. Rosa had noticed something that Edward had missed entirely. William was extraordinarily good with people when he was present. When the noise and the gambling and the substances were removed, what remained was a young man with genuine emotional intelligence and natural leadership instincts. His first difficult tenant conversation lasted 40 minutes and resolved a dispute that had been ongoing for 2 years. The property manager called Edward's office afterward to say he didn't know what had changed, but the Lancaster boy had handled it better than most professionals he had worked with. Edward's condition deteriorated faster than his specialists had projected. Rosa observed the changes carefully over several weeks, not as a medical professional but as a woman raised by a grandmother who understood the human body in ways that formal medicine sometimes overlooked. She contacted her elderly aunt in Batangas, the keeper of their family's generations-old wellness traditions. What Rosa prepared for Edward is not named in this story and will not be. It is a private family tradition, passed down through 4 generations of women in their province. It is not a cure. It is not medicine. It is what Rosa's family has always done for people they love, a preparation of care, prayer, and what her grandmother simply called the patience of plants. Rosa gave Edward the preparation alongside his prescribed medication, with his full knowledge and consent, and with no claims attached beyond this. Her grandmother had used it and her grandmother had believed in it. She also insisted on 8 hours of sleep.
Proper meals. Morning sunlight in the garden.
No work correspondence after 6 in the evening. Edward's London specialist noted measurable improvement at the 6-week review. At 4 months, the neurological deterioration had not merely slowed. His latest scans showed clear reversal of previously documented progression. The specialist used the word unexplained in his report.
He used it 3 times.
Edward read the report in Rosa's kitchen at 6 in the morning and simply said her name. She was already making tea. The transformation in James and William did not happen in a single dramatic moment. It happened the way genuine transformation always happens, in accumulation. Small decisions compounding into character. James restructured Lancaster Industries' entire financial reporting system with an elegance that surprised the company's most senior executives, who had been there for decades. He identified 3 significant inefficiencies in their investment portfolio that had gone unnoticed for years. His father's CFO called Edward directly to say that James had a natural financial mind that reminded him of a young Edward Lancaster. Edward received this information in Rosa's garden on a Tuesday morning while she deadhead roses beside him, and he wept quietly behind his sunglasses so she would not see. William resolved a property dispute in Berlin that had involved lawyers from 3 countries for 19 months. He flew there himself without telling anyone, sat across a table from 2 opposing parties who had stopped speaking to each other, and facilitated an agreement in one afternoon through patience and directness and a genuine curiosity about what each person actually needed rather than what they were demanding. He called Rosa from the Berlin airport that evening. He said, "I don't know where I learned to do that." Rosa said, "You learned it at breakfast." William was quiet for a moment.
Then he said, "Rosa, thank you."
It was the first time either boy had used those two words with her and meant them completely. One evening James found a photograph of his mother in a storage box he had not opened since the week of her funeral. He carried it downstairs to the kitchen where Rosa was sitting at the table writing her weekly letter to her mother in Batangas. She still wrote letters by hand, always had. James set the photograph on the table in front of her, without explanation. Rosa looked at it for a long time. She said, "She has your eyes." James sat down across from her. He said, "She would have liked you." Rosa excused herself to the bathroom. She stood at the sink for 4 minutes. When she returned, James had made 2 cups of tea, badly but intentionally, and set one in front of her chair. William asked Rosa to teach him Tagalog. He made the request one morning at breakfast without preamble, simply looked up from his eggs and said he wanted to understand where she came from. Rosa began teaching him one word each morning. He practiced each word with an accent so committed and so incorrect that it became the first genuinely funny thing to happen regularly in the Lancaster mansion in 5 years. Edward would listen from the doorway, pretending to read his newspaper, shaking with suppressed laughter. Rosa would correct William with absolute patience. William would attempt the word again. Rosa would correct him again. James would look up from his accounts and say something dry and precise, and everyone would laugh, and Edward would think, "This is exactly what a family sounds like." Mr. Chun called James and William into his office on a Tuesday afternoon and explained everything. The diagnosis,
The timeline, the plan,
Rosa's 3 conditions,
the legal transfer, all of it.
He placed the original documents on the table and let the boys read every page. The room was completely silent for 11 minutes. William put his face in his hands, not in anger but in the specific overwhelm of someone processing that they have been loved in a way they did not recognize while it was happening. James asked one question: did she ever consider keeping it? Mr. Chun smiled. He said, "She asked me that exact question the day she signed. She said, and I am quoting, 'The properties were never mine to keep.'" James walked directly from Mr. Chen's office back to Lancaster Mansion. He found Rosa in the garden on a Thursday afternoon doing what she always did on Thursdays, deadheading roses with the calm methodical attention of someone for whom no task is beneath full presence. James stood beside her without speaking for almost a minute. Then he said, "You didn't have to do any of this." Rosa did not look up from the roses. She said, "Your father asked me to help save his sons. Where I come from, you do not say no to that." James picked up the second pair of garden gloves hanging on the fence post and began helping her without being asked. Rosa smiled at the roses. She did not say anything else. She did not need to. Edward proposed to Rosa 3 months after his health had stabilized.
Not in a restaurant.
Not with a grand gesture rehearsed in advance. He found her in the kitchen at 6 in the morning making pandesal from her mother's recipe, and he sat at the table and said, "I told you 2 years ago that this was a plan. I need to tell you now that it stopped being a plan a long time ago." Rosa kept working the dough. She said, "When did it stop?" He thought about it genuinely. "The night you came back with your 3 conditions. I realized I had never in my life met anyone who negotiated from values instead of interests." Rosa put down the dough. She said, "Yes. But I am finishing the pandesal first." The wedding was held in the Lancaster Mansion garden on a Saturday in June. Small, intentional, exactly as Rosa had requested. James was Edward's best man. William, without being asked, simply deciding, walked Rosa down the garden path to where Edward was waiting beneath an arch of white flowers. Rosa's mother and 2 sisters flew from the Philippines. Rosa's elderly aunt from Batangas sat in the front row and said nothing all day but watched everything with the eyes of a woman who understood precisely what had unfolded here. The wedding cake was layered with mango and ube. The caterers were confused. The guests were delighted. Edward danced at his own wedding. The man given 12 months to live danced at his own wedding. William met Andrea in Cebu on his third visit to the Philippines, a quiet, direct, extraordinarily capable woman who managed her family's small construction business and spoke 4 languages and laughed at William's Tagalog without cruelty. They were engaged 14 months later. James built a foundation in Rosa's mother's name, the Dela Cruz Foundation, supporting Filipino domestic workers and caregivers worldwide with legal resources, education funding and community programs. Lancaster Industries launched a global diversity initiative that Edward credits entirely to Rosa's influence. The business press called it visionary corporate strategy. Edward told one interviewer, "It was not strategy. It was a Filipino woman's values applied to a British company." The results speak for themselves. This story is not about a housekeeper who got lucky. It is not about a billionaire who fell for his staff. It is about what happens when a family that has forgotten how to be a family encounters someone who has never forgotten. Rosa Dela Cruz arrived at Lancaster Mansion with a work ethic, a faith and the quiet unshakable understanding that service is not beneath dignity, it is an expression of it. James runs Lancaster Industries. William manages their global properties and speaks Tagalog, badly but lovingly. Edward is 62 and healthy and dances in the kitchen on Sunday mornings. And Rosa still calls her mother in Batangas every Sunday without exception. In the garden of an English billionaire's home, sampaguita blooms every summer. Edward says the smell of it is exactly what hope smells like. Philippines Red Heart.